Hey guys, this is Mr. Lee, the science teacher for the Blue community. We are entering our new content. We just finished up fungi stuff, Unit 11 with Mr. Guy from the Red community, and we are now entering Unit 12, which is plant structures. So this potentially will be one of three lessons that I will do this way, giving notes to follow along. Um, as you will using the Google Doc, you will follow along with me, typing in your answers. You may end up having to listen to this a couple times if you're not able to see the screen to get the information you need. As we go through, I'll try to go as slow as possible, but also I need um, to work through. But again, I won't be able to stop. But you can always stop and rewind, as I go through and get the information that you need. So the goals for this unit: 1. I can identify structures in plants used for defense and survival and can explain the specific role of each. I can identify the parts of a flower and explain its role in reproduction. And the biggest thing I like to tell my students, and I always get the question of, why do we learn this kind of stuff? And that one of the biggest things as an adult, as a science teacher who knows a lot about science, I couldn't figure out why me and my wife had planted an apple tree in our yard and it wasn't producing fruit. And I couldn't figure out why. And then it hit me of talking with another science teacher. Well, you need two plants of the same type to be able to produce. I mean, they've got to be able to pollinate off of each other to be able to produce fruit. And so I had a fig tree in my yard and realized, well, it was producing figs, so there has to be other figs in the area. Well, I found out just by talking to my neighbors that 2 houses down, that person had a fig tree, and then two or three houses above me had a fig tree. And so we never want a fig tree, never want a figs. They just grew and grew and grew. But again, they had multiple of them in the same area that were able to pollinate off each other. So it's like a real life, real world example for you there. All right, first section, structural adaptations for defense. Structures for defense protect plants from threats and could potentially kill the plant. An example of natural defenses that plants have developed over time may be: 1. Thorns that defend the plant from being eaten by some animals. 2. Fruits and leaves with poisons so that they are not eaten by animals. And if you'll look at as you're listening, if you're looking at the pictures, I mean, obviously trying to bite into a that thorny plant up above would be really hard to do. And then in that bottom right picture, it looks like, have you ever heard the saying of leaves of three, let it be? And that's potentially poison ivy in that photo. And so, yeah, you would want to leave that alone. Animals wouldn't want to eat that because it would make them sick, possibly killing them, depending on the animal itself. Structures for defense protect plants from threats that could potentially kill the plant. And examples of natural defenses that plants have developed over time may be: 1. Thorns that defend the plant from being eaten by some animals, or 2. Fruits and leaves with poisons so that they are not eaten by animals. Structural adaptations for defense continued. 3. The ability to close its leaves when touched. This is called thigmotropism. Thigmotropism is the ability to close its leaves, and certain plants have the ability to close its leaves when touched. Next section, structural adaptations for survival. Plants have structures that allow them to survive in their habitats when the conditions are not suitable. An example of parts of flowering plants that function for survival may be: 1. Leaves function as the site of photosynthesis, respiration, and transpiration in plants. Plants have structures that allow them to survive in their habitats when the conditions are not suitable. Examples of parts of flowering plants that function for survival may be: 1. Leaves function as the site of photosynthesis, respiration, and transpiration in plants. And you'll notice the pictures to the right. Photosynthesis during the day. You have sunlight coming into the plant, carbon dioxide taken up from the atmosphere, oxygen added to the atmosphere, so it's coming into the plant, oxygen coming out of the plant, water through the leaf veins, with carbohydrates and energy through respiration. Water vapor added to atmosphere, carbon dioxide added to atmosphere, respiration again night and day. Transpiration, water evaporates from leaf surfaces. You'll see that the water is absorbed by the roots. Water travels through the plant, and again, water evaporates from leaf surfaces. 2. Stems support the plant and hold the leaves up to the light. Stems also function as food storage sites. The xylem and the stems transport water from the roots to the leaves and other plants. The phylum and the stem transports food made in the leaves to growing plants parts of the plant. And you'll see in the pictures you have the rows there with pointing at the stem. Inside the stem on the outer layer is the epidermis. The inside there is the cortex with the pith and the cambium. Looks like the little egg shapes kind of there. The xylem and the phylum were there, pictured to the right. 3. Roots help anchor the plant in the ground. They also absorb water and nutrients from the soil and store extra food for the plants. The more surface area of the root that is available, the more water and nutrients it can absorb. Root hairs help to increase this surface area. So in the pictures to the right, we have showing you the root hairs. Obviously, that would be what was under the ground there. Root hairs absorb water and nutrients from the soil. So you have the root, and it's showing you the picture of up to the right there, bottom right there, the root, soil particles, and root hair. Okay, next. There are two types of roots, fibrous roots and tap roots. Fibrous roots consist of several main roots that branch off to form a mass of roots. And examples are grass, corn, and some trees. Tap roots consist of one large main root with smaller roots branching off. Examples are carrots, dandelions, or cacti. In the pictures there, we have a taproot, which is example giving by like a carrot that grows. A fibrous root would be more like tomatoes that you plant. And then again, it shows you the picture difference of a taproot versus a fibrous root. And that's again kind of the difference there. 4. Seeds have special structures that allow them to be dispersed by wind, water, or animals. And it's asking you how is each seed pictured above in the pictures if you're looking along with me. A would be probably more like dispersed by animals. Those they call those burrs, and it's almost like if you've ever, I'm sure at some point if you ever walk through woods or wooded area, you'll some point, especially in the summer, you'll get these and they attach themselves to you. It's almost like Velcro. I think it's kind of like where they got the idea from it, because they stick to whatever they touch. So animals will get them on their bodies or get them in their fur. Humans actually will get them, like it shows in the picture, actually attached to their blue jeans, and literally it's like spiky and it's hard to get off. They had to pull them off. B, again, that obviously would be water. So the seeds fall into the water and they're kind of moved around that way. And then the last one, C, would be wind. And if you've ever, I'm sure as a kid at some point you've picked these and kind of blew them and then it just blows them everywhere. It's like little people on parachutes. It just kind of just gets dispersed. 5. The seed coat helps protect the embryo from injury and also from drying out. And it shows you in the picture here as the seed coat, the cotyledon is the inside, and then again with the embryo. All right, next section, structural adaptations for reproduction. Parts of the flowering plant that function in reproduction include: number 1, flowers. Flowers produce seeds. Many flowers contain both male and female parts needed to produce new flowers. Flower petals are often colorful or have a scent to attract insects and other animals. Inside a flower, you have the pistil, which is the female parts of the flower, which is the stigma, and it shows you in the picture there pointing to the top. You have the style, you have the ovary, which contains ovules, the stamen, which is the male parts of the flower, which is the anther, contains pollen, the filament, and the sepals. Number 2, stamen. The male part of a flower that has an anther or a thin stalk called the filament. The anther produces the pollen that contains the sperm cells. The anther or the filament in the picture here, and it shows you with the stamen. And then to the right, that's what it would look like. And you'll notice the tops of the anther, those little, that's where the pollen would be, and then obviously the bees would land on that, or insects, and they would get that covered, get essentially covered in that stuff, and then that's how that the flower gets pollinated from one flower to another, essentially. 3. The pistil. The female part of the flower that contains the stigma, style, and ovary. The stigma is the sticky top where pollen grains land. The style is a stalk down which the pollen tube grows after pollination has taken place. The ovary, which contains the ovules where the egg cells are produced. In the picture, we have the receptacle. It shows you the ovary and the style and the stigma. And then you have the pistil with the stigma toward the top, the style, the ovary, and the ovule. Structural adaptations for reproduction continued. Number 4, the seed. The ovule that contains the fertilized egg or embryo from which new plants are formed. A fruit that is formed from the ovary often protects them. And again, it shows you kind of and then this diagram here, you have the ovary, the oval, and the zygote. Flower just after fertilization, and then it goes into the pestils wilt, the petals wilt, the embryo develops, it goes down into seed develops from the ovule, fruit develops from the ovary, and then the fruit ripens, flower parts fall away. All right, guys, that ends our video for today. Hope, again, reminding you that you can always stop at this point, rewind to wherever you need it to, and replay it. You can fill in as you're listening to me, or you can go back again and watch the video as I'm going through it as well.